Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Wire App. I'm Jahnavi Sen. It's been a heated week in Parliament as the discussions around the Pahalgam terror attack, Operation Sindoor, and the aftermath have been brought up finally. Meanwhile, just yesterday, US President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on India plus additional penalties. These penalties, according to him, are because India continues to do trade with Russia on arms and energy. With me to discuss all of this today, I have Maya Mirchandani, who's the head of Department of Media at Ashoka University, and M.K. Venu, founding editor of The Wire. Thank you both so much for joining me. Let's start with the parliamentary discussions we've seen this week. Now, for the opposition, these discussions have been a long time coming because soon after the Pahalgam attack and then Operation Sindoor and the tensions with Pakistan that went on for 4 days, they demanded a special session of parliament be held so that questions around these issues can be answered, but the union government did not comply with this demand. Ever since April 22, when 26 civilians lost their lives in the terror attack in Pahalgam, leaders from the opposition have been asking the Narendra Modi government how this could have happened, what the security lapses involved were, how terrorists allegedly from Pakistan could have entered, roamed free, gone to the Baisaran Valley, and then left without security forces having so much of as a note of it. Now, we saw a slew of opposition leaders raise these very questions in Parliament on the first day of the discussions, which was Monday as well, and also saying that the Modi government was politicizing the issue but was not anymore talking about the actual victims of this attack. Now, questions around Operation Sindoor have also been raised, particularly around the aircraft losses that India may have suffered during combat. The Modi government has refused to answer these questions and insisted everywhere that this operation has been a resounding success. This is the same line that ministers like Defence Minister Rajnath Singh have used in Parliament. One of the very serious questions that arose out of this whole incident was around the role of US President Donald Trump, who is the one who announced the ceasefire between India and Pakistan. He has claimed that he is the one who brokered peace between the two countries, and that too by using trade as a leverage. Pakistan has not refuted these claims, but India has said again and again that the negotiations were bilateral and that no union government minister was speaking to Trump during this period. But none of them have also come out to say that Trump is lying about this. Now, one of the questions that most leaders who spoke on Monday from the opposition raised were why, more than 100 days after the Pahalgam attack, there has been no news on what has happened to those terrorists who actually carried out the attack, why they have not been captured yet. And soon after, there was an encounter outside of Srinagar in which 3 men were killed. The army officials were going to have a press conference about this soon after, but then cancelled it at the last minute. The next day, on Tuesday, in Parliament, Home Minister Amit Shah announced that these 3 men were in fact the terrorists who had killed civilians in Pahalgam. Now, the opposition has come out to question the timing of this encounter and the announcement, but the Prime Minister and also Amit Shah have said that these questions are illegitimate and instead the nation should be coming together to rejoice the killing of these terrorists. Amit Shah has also said that there is proof that these terrorists were from Pakistan. For 2 of them, they have Pakistani voter ID numbers, is what he said, and also that in their hideout there were chocolate wrappers that were from Pakistan. Now, for the first day of the discussion, the Prime Minister did not attend Parliament. For the second day, he came just a few minutes before his speech. And for the third day in the Rajya Sabha, as discussions continued, he again chose not to attend, leading to the opposition walking out, saying this was a slight, that he was not wanting to engage with them and listen to their questions. Now, I want to start by asking both of you, we've seen a lot happen in Parliament this week. What do you make of it? Maya, would you like to start?
So, the first thing that, the call for a special discussion on Pahalgam and Operation Sindoor was made, as you said, much earlier because there were certain questions around how it happened. We saw the opposition leaders ask those questions. Every single opposition leader got up in Parliament and essentially asked the same questions that had been asked right after Pahalgam. Why was this area not secured better, especially when one knew tourists would be there? Where were the troops that were usually surrounding these areas? Why is it that these terrorists, when the firing even began, and they left that space, what has taken so long to get them? Now, all these questions were asked, but the fundamental question around the security lapses that led to Pahalgam have still not been answered. And I think you can catch any number of terrorists in the Pir Panjal ranges. It's interesting that, I mean, the timing, of course, is great for the government that these three guys were caught and killed just before the parliament debates had begun, and the home minister was meant to speak there. But it's also very curious that, these, if you know the terrain of Kashmir, from Pahalgam, these mountain ranges just go all the way into the Pir Panjal. How is it that their hideout was on the outskirts of Srinagar again? I mean, they've been looking, right? The outskirts of Srinagar would have been the first few places that they would have searched for. So, have they gone all the way into the jungles and the mountains and the forests and then come back to Srinagar? Is that how they were caught? I mean, there are still a lot of questions around the intelligence that led to the lack of intelligence that led to the attack in Pahalgam, the quality of the intelligence that we saw in the subsequent 2 months after Pahalgam, that has finally led to this encounter on the outskirts of Srinagar. I mean, I still have the questions, and I'm sure so does the opposition, and they're still unanswered. But I think the government and the security establishment does owe, particularly the survivors of those victims, an answer as to how, when everybody was encouraging people to go back to Kashmir, this attack took place. It does not assuage concerns that future attacks may be prevented if you don't know how this one took place at all in the first place. And I think that's still the question.
Venu, what do you think?
Well, the questions that Maya says she still doesn't have answers for, the opposition is also saying they don't have answers for. And and quite curiously, the big achievement that the Home Minister claimed of killing these three terrorists who they say were responsible for Pahalgam, it did not create any great wave of excitement generally among the people. The sense I got was that even the citizens were a bit puzzled as to the timing of the, the the government announcing the on eve of the parliament discussion. So those questions, of course, all those questions remain, and additionally, all the other questions in regard to the India's foreign policy doctrine. What is the new doctrine, which Rahul Gandhi and others very clinically raised, expounded, described in Parliament? We still do not know certain basic things as to the government has still not admitted that aircrafts are down. Now, it's shocking that whatever that we've learned so far, we've learned from Indian defense military officers on foreign soil. Mr. Chauhan, CDS, Chief of Defense Staff in Singapore, and subsequently another defense military officer in Indonesia, Shiv Kumar, whom Rahul Gandhi quoted. And I am still waiting for an answer to this very critical question. What Shiv Kumar said, that it was the political leadership, the constraints created by political leadership, which resulted in the aircraft being downed. Now, I would want an answer as to what were the constraints. Why did the political leadership, in what way did they constrain the Air Force in doing the Operation Sindoor? And again, questions all raised by Rahul Gandhi in his speech. Very clinical exposition, by Rahul. And those questions they still remain unanswered. And what is the foreign policy doctrine? One interesting thing is which many foreign policy, respected foreign policy experts like Sham Saran, former Foreign Secretary, wrote an article in Business Standard where he said, "What is the doctrine? Are you now saying that is the government's new doctrine that any terror attack on India will lead to a military response. Now, what does that mean? What are the implications of that for a possible nuclear, flashpoint, right? In fact, one of the reasons why Trump has cited why he intervened is because he thought that this would spill over to a nuclear kind of exchange. On that, there is complete silence, and on the doctrine aspect, complete silence. The government may claim that it successfully destroyed many military bases and other terror camps across the border, but this question still remains unanswered, which again Rahul Gandhi had raised in his speech, as to what is your doctrine. Now, next time, are you giving the initiative in the hands of a bunch of terrorists, that they come in and they draw you into a war with Pakistan? For me, that's a very, very critical question which nobody is answering. Yeah.
I think one of the other things that has also been something to watch in this entire episode, which is something, Venu, you wrote about just before this discussion started, which is the government's attitude towards the opposition. Now, we saw how soon after Operation Sindoor, when those delegations went abroad to talk to governments in different countries and other bodies, they involved opposition leaders who went, wrote about it, talked about their experiences, were an active part of these delegations. But if we look at what's happening in Parliament this week, it's a very different approach the government is taking to the opposition. In fact, Amit Shah, in his speech, when he was talking about these terrorists killed and how it happened, he was taking jibes at the opposition, like he told Akhilesh Yadav, oh, don't be so disappointed because you've now heard the religion of the terrorists. We see how Narendra Modi does not see it fit to even attend Parliament. And, like our leader Sanjay Singh made a joke about this, about how, he doesn't need to be anywhere because he's non-biological. He can be everywhere at the same time. But it got to the extent that the opposition actually staged a walkout, that because he did not see it fit to come to Parliament except when he was speaking himself, not even to hear his own ministers. So what do you make of this entire scenario?
I mean, I don't know what there is to make of it. I think we have seen
a transactional relationship between the government and certain members of the opposition for the last 10 years. I think what we need to remember when we talk about this is that in the throes of a national crisis, in the throes of a war with Pakistan, our oldest adversary, a visceral adversary, you are going to find a united population, a united opposition. Nobody is going to criticize the government in the midst of a conflict, which is what we saw. And if you remember, even after the armed hostilities ended with Donald Trump saying that I have mediated a ceasefire, the government made the point that while there is a cessation of hostilities for the moment, Operation Sindoor is not over. So again, the message going out is we are at war with Pakistan. So when we are at war with Pakistan, everybody is going to rally around the flag. That's just the nature of war and the nature of national identity. Parliament itself is a whole different thing. So in that moment, the opposition is going to come together. I mean, whether you viscerally dislike this government or whether you support them, you will not criticize the government in a moment of national crisis. We've seen it time and time again. But we are now at the end of July. We're in the monsoon session. This is not a special session of Parliament. You have waited till, routine order of business to schedule this. You've not had a discussion on Pahalgam and the attack in Pahalgam. You've had a discussion on Operation Sindoor, where you want to again do your little bit of chest thumping and again encourage the fact that the Home Minister is saying these questions are illegitimate, is again sending a message that you are questioning national integrity, your patriotism is in question. No, I'm sorry, patriotism is not in question when you're saying, why should this happen? If after 26/11 there were legitimate questions asked about security lapses that led to that siege in Mumbai, then these are also legitimate questions. It cannot be legitimate at one time and illegitimate another time. At the end of the day, the government is elected by the people. The government owes us an answer. If I travel to Kashmir tomorrow, am I going to be safe or not? are you keeping me safe? You want me to travel to Kashmir. You said after August 5th, 2019, terrorism was over. This is the Naya Kashmir that, India had always wanted. Everything is over. What happened? And again, when you see, I think the question on the opposition is actually a larger one, and I don't know if this is the discussion for it. But I think what we saw in the wake of Operation Sindoor and what we're seeing 2 months or 6 weeks after Operation Sindoor are both legitimate responses. One is saying in time of crisis, we will not challenge the government. Let this subside, but we do have questions and we want you to answer them. And I think that, they're not contradictory positions.
Actually, Janvi, on this, I also wrote on this, and I am now convinced that the opposition, okay, they came together. First of all, Operation Sindoor, after Operation Sindoor, it's a fact that Prime Minister Modi was on the back foot. He was not as gung-ho as he was after Balakot, right? And even within his own Sangh Parivar, he was being questioned. It's a fact. His own ecosystem was questioning why ceasefire. The contradiction was that we really overcame them and we blasted them. Then the ecosystem was asking the Sangh, why ceasefire then? Why didn't you go further and inflict some more losses?
And Trump's intervention definitely didn't help with that narrative.
Yeah. So why did you listen to whatever? Trump intervention aside, I'm talking about domestic politics now. So when Modi got cornered, for the first time in 11 years, he sought the opposition's cooperation to put up a united front abroad.
Right.
So opposition was decent enough to say yes. In fact, some Congress members like Shashi Tharoor and Manish Tiwari even went to the extent of giving unqualified kind of support to this thing.
Well, all of them who went on delegations, not just the Congress leaders, but all of them who went on delegations.
Congress leaders were particularly
seen Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Shiv Sena, Supriya Sule, they were all part of these.
So point I'm making is, so opposition cooperated abroad. And they also made the point that it is wrong to hyphenate India with Pakistan, right? That's our foreign policy. But the moment they come back, Modi and BJP, they revert to type and they start treating opposition like they would earlier, really push them around. So my point was, my article was, you can't seek cooperation abroad and then here you start ill-treating them. And that's exactly what you just pointed out.
That's what I meant by transactional.
Yeah, Amit Shah was treating the opposition. So this is one aspect. The second aspect is, if you just see the components of operations, the way the BJP ecosystem tries to protect Modi's image. It's always about Modi's image, and often on this occasion, it had precedence over even the country's interests. For instance, Modi was projected during the operation as a warrior who's in fatigues, in army, going after Pakistan and destroying Pakistan. And suddenly when ceasefire happened, Modi's pictures were withdrawn and Vikram Misri's foreign secretary's picture, ceasefire. Ceasefire is somebody else. This is now. So all this, and
not just that, the foreign secretary's daughter was merciless.
Yeah, they were merciless. So all I'm saying is that somehow everything is about Modi's image, which is why I again totally agree with Rahul when he says that Modi's image seems to be above, when he said it can't be above the country, above the military, his PR can't be, above everything else. So that's a very important aspect of, and again, this Vishwaguru image is crumbling at the moment because of not only the fallout of Operation Sindoor, now the Trump tariffs. Again, you'll find the ecosystem trying to protect his image, So what we as citizens, countrymen are seeing is that we want some solutions. We are not bothered about his image,
Yeah, we will talk about the tariffs, but before that, I think from what both of you said, Priyanka Gandhi Vadra in her speech in Parliament said something about how the entire focus of ministers has been on Operation Sindoor and not on the attack. and also on Modi wanting to take credit for this operation and its success and terror bases that were attacked in Pakistan successfully. But one of the things she says was, but like, if you want to take credit, fine, take it, but then credit has to come with responsibility.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's where the PR break is coming in, from what you were saying, what people want as well.
Well, like I said, assurances on security and why this happened in the first place. Also, I think what Venu pointed out, this sense that if this was a victory and if India was doing so well, then why did it suddenly stop? Because Trump, I have sources who've said that one of the reasons that the hostilities stopped so suddenly overnight in America, changed its position from being a little distant to, let them sort it out, to saying, no, this is actually over, was because I think it was the Noor Khan base where the F-16s are stationed, also has US personnel. And I mean, this is what I've been told. And so if the US personnel end up being targeted inadvertently, then that would force the American hand. And I don't think America wanted to. I mean, this is all speculation, so one can debate on whether it actually happened or not. And I'm sure enough people will tell me I'm talking rubbish, but I have it on good authority that this is what was one of the factors that made the US change its position about involvement at the very end. But I think even bigger than that is what we've heard the opposition leaders say in Parliament as well. If you go on saying that nobody told you to stop, no world leader told you to stop, and you had this edge over Pakistan for two reasons. One is the difference between Balakot and this was that Indian aircraft actually entered Pakistani airspace. So there was that sort of cross LOC violation that may have taken place. This time, Pakistan was literally provoking you into a bigger response because they were attacking villages along the international border, not just the line of control. And you were within Indian territory, you had the long range capabilities now to target these bases. So, what prompted you to stop? If you think you've shown Pakistan a lesson and that you have the capability, sure, you may have shown that, but don't delude yourself into thinking this is a dehyphenated relationship now. Donald Trump hosted Asim Munir for lunch in Washington. Uh, yesterday he's talking about helping Pakistan develop oil reserves, and who knows, maybe Pakistan will sell oil to India one day. Who knows? I mean, but the fact is, the Americans were in some shape or form involved. Trump might be unpredictable, he might be impetuous, impulsive, whatever adjectives you want to use for him. But he has consistently said from the day the cessation of hostilities took place that he mediated this stoppage. It's not one time, it's not two times, it's not three times. He says it at every opportunity. 26 times. There you go, at last count. So if he has said, okay, let's just over 25 times that he has said this, and you're going on saying, so you're contradicting the US president repeatedly. The Pakistanis are going on saying thank you and we think you should get the Nobel Prize. I mean, nobody knows who to believe anymore. There is no credibility left in how this ended. Now you say Operation Sindoor is not over, but then the operation and the encounter that killed the terrorists is now Operation Mahadev. So has Sindoor ended, and now is it like, what's going on?
People generally have an idea of the truth.
Well, I'm not saying people don't have an idea of the truth. I'm not talking about what people in their gut feel or perceive. I'm talking about the obligation of an elected government to speak with clarity and honesty. If there was a lapse of security, look, every security officer is also a human being at the end of the day. There may have been lapses. You learn from those lessons. After 9/11, what happened to the US security establishment? They couldn't come out and say, oh, there was no security lapse. After 26/11, you couldn't say there was no security lapse. So after Pahalgam, after Balakot, you could not say there was, after Pulwama, you couldn't say there was no security lapse. So how can you just ignore the idea of a security lapse right here?
Also, Maya, I must generally point this here. even very seasoned strategic affairs analysts, like I'll give one name, C. Rajamohan. He was at a seminar in IISc the other day. He said he has always taken positions which are, pro-Indian establishment on foreign policy. He said that there's no harm in admitting that US did help, in the ceasefire by intervening with Pakistan, because things were obviously spiraling out of control. And he says, he's written this also in the past, that it's a reality that the US is an important mediator, not in a formal sense, but as an important mediator
around the world.
But
there's one more thing to this. I think again, I come back to Donald Trump's personality as well. The more you deny what he is saying, the angrier he is getting. And I think there is a direct correlation between India's repeated denials of any US involvement and what we're seeing with the tariffs and these subsequent statements. He is invoking the India-Pakistan hostilities. He is invoking the enmity between the two. He is, dead economies, dead countries, you buy Pakistani oil, India has not been good to us. All this is coming, I'm sure, also out of a sense of a hurt ego.
I think what's been interesting about the government's denials, though, including in Parliament, has been that they haven't wanted to name Trump. So they're all saying things like like Modi said, no foreign leader had anything to do with it.
But they admitted that J.D. Vance called, right?
Yes.
And he did not take J.D. Vance's call
because he was
several
busy.
times. 3 or 4 times he
No,
called.
but
Which also was a bit strange, I thought.
Yeah. No, but J.D. Vance called other leaders, right? He spoke to Jaishankar and others, no?
Yeah, but
he
the
spoke to
Prime
Modi as
Minister...
well, but after a few hours.
Yeah.
the Prime
He
Minister
called
was
me
busy.
3-4 times and I was busy, so I couldn't take his call, is what he said.
But despite that, the denials continue. But other than Jaishankar, who has the External Affairs Minister, who said that there was no phone call between Trump and Modi between, I think, April 17 and June 22nd, is what he said. Other than him saying this particular thing that named Trump, there's been no outright denial of Trump's claims. There have just been assertions that there was no foreign leader involved, there was no pressure externally which made us
Prime Minister has not mentioned Trump.
No.
Just as he doesn't mention China.
Yeah. So I think there was perhaps an attempt to keep that facade of this friendship between the Prime Minister and
Jaishankar,
Donald Trump
needs to do a little introspection on the way he's been conducting foreign policy. This is a personal opinion, but not just as far as America is concerned. He was there at President Trump's swearing in, and there's been a lot been made of the friendship between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, and it's all coming from our diplomats and our foreign minister, right?
I think that facade of friendship actually
has crumbled.
Takes us into what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Which was that in a post on his own platform, which is Truth Social, Donald Trump announced that there's going to be a 25% tariff on India starting from August 1st, which is tomorrow. And in addition to that, there's going to be a penalty. Now, he did not give details on what this penalty is going to look like, but he did say it's because India continues to buy arms and oil from Russia. Now, his post said that India is a friend, but India has high tariffs and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers. And because of that, there's always been restricted business between the two countries.
Yeah.
So, according to him, now these trade barriers plus India's continuing relationship with Russia are all things not good, in his words, and so therefore India deserves this higher tariff.
This is the same man when he was president from 2016 to 2020 gave India the CATSA waiver for the S-400s. Let's not forget that. So something has really radically shifted in the way Trump sees India.
And
I think it's evident.
Even though in this first post he called India a friend, later in the day he posted about how India and Russia can do whatever they want and he doesn't care, and these two dead economies can go down together. Now, this move comes at a time when reportedly India and the US are in the middle of trade deal negotiations. We don't know exactly where they stand, but these negotiations have been taking place.
If these posts are any indication of where they stand, then
And India has responded to Trump's announcement with a very short official release in which it said it's studying the implications of this tariff and penalty and will take steps to secure our national interest. Now, meanwhile, as Maya, you already mentioned, Trump has already gone on to tweet about a deal it's made with Pakistan on developing oil reserves and how a US company is going to be involved in being in Pakistan and developing this reserve. I guess, Venu, if you could start, what are the implications of what Trump has announced yesterday?
See, there are straight away 2-3 very serious implications. All other countries, they negotiated with Trump. Many of them gave pushback. China, Xi Jinping never even responded to Trump initially. Trump kept asking him to talk. Then finally they met in some third country. I think they had a meeting in Geneva, etc. So Japan gave a pushback. Now they all pushed back. They defied, and they had tough negotiation, and they all settled at some tariff, which is much lower than India's. So today, as things stand, India is the highest tariff around the world, when India was the one which gave the impression initially that we are doing a comprehensive bilateral trade agreement. Yeah. So where is the comprehensive bilateral trade agreement? Obviously, things didn't work out, right? And I can tell you, Jeffrey Sachs was here in Delhi, and I heard him say on TV that he visited Jaishankar, and this was about a few weeks ago, and he told Jaishankar that you can't trust Trump. Don't trust him. You would not get an agreement to your satisfaction. I think Jeffrey Sachs was proved right. And India, not only has India got 25% tariff, the original was 26%, right? The one that Trump Liberation Day tariff. Yeah. And those on China and all 145%, on others, they've all, relative to that, everybody has managed to do some broad agreement with Trump. Japan 15%, South Korea yesterday again 15%. Everybody is 15% or 20%, and India is at 25%, which means
plus penalties.
Plus, I don't know what the penalties will be. Yeah. Now, so India will become totally uncompetitive vis-a-vis all these countries in the US market. So Trump has pushed India into a corner. And the Russia thing has a different dimension altogether. It's a geopolitical, serious geopolitical dimension to it. He's telling India that you make a choice, geopolitical choice, with me or against me. Yeah. Now earlier Bush also used to say with me or against me, but all those presidents they gave some accommodation. Let India do something with Russia. That was the position earlier. Let them, since they have a historical relationship with them on arms. We have a lot of high-tech joint programs with Russia. BrahMos. We are claiming such big success of BrahMos. Yeah. Now, we can't overnight say that our BrahMos JV or partnership with Russia is over, or other missile. And we can't not buy oil. Pre-Ukraine, Russia's share in India's oil imports was about 3%. Today it is 26-30%. We're getting cheaper oil, right? Which was again Biden and European Union, they let that happen in spite of sanctions. But now European Union has said that, has put a stricter cap on the oil price, which is $50. Earlier it was $60. Russia couldn't sell beyond 60. Now it's 50. It's profitable for India. I mean, India can buy at 50. But then Trump is saying, no, you can't buy more oil from. Now, so India has been pushed into a corner, and it is Modi's image again, this whole Vishwaguru image that I can manage, I'm going around and hugging people. It is so badly damaged that if he does a climb down with the US, suppose he says, okay, US wants to sell, there's a report that F-15 or whatever. If now he reduces tariffs, and the people will say,
under pressure.
Dar ke kar raha hai, under pressure. And there was no need. Now, BJP's ecosystem is now readying their narrative that India is standing up to America. But this narrative will also fall flat, Jahnavi, because in early February, Modi and Jaishankar went and visited Trump. There was no need to have done that. Yeah. Premature visit with concrete, with decisions taken on these are the offers, these are the things we are giving you, including a promise to buy $10 billion of extra oil, nuclear liability clause, diluting the nuclear. Yeah. All that, even before Trump had announced the April tariffs, even before trade negotiations begun, unilateral, you gave them all these things, hoping that Trump will come around and give you something. I think that was a big blunder. It was a big blunder. I don't know who advised Modi. If it was Jaishankar, it was a big blunder going at that time. Now we are looking stupid for having offered all that and finally getting this 25% tariff and threat of penalties for doing business with Russia on arms and oil, which under no circumstance can we withdraw that.
And it's very interesting that he's linked the Russia penalties to India's position on the Ukraine war. He said that when the rest of the world wants Russia to stop its invasion of Ukraine, you are buying. I think that was the framing that he has made. And again, I think that puts into question India's foreign policy. I mean, if India's strategic autonomy consists essentially of hedging, right? We don't take a stand. I'm not saying that you have to abandon a relationship with Russia to take a stand on what it's doing in Ukraine. Not saying that you have to abandon a relationship with Israel to condemn what's happening in Gaza. Not saying that you have to take a position on anything, that you feel so strongly about. That's a strong friendship, without just speaking out for what is right and what is just and what needs to be addressed on the world stage. I mean, has there been one statement from Vishwaguru on what is, to everybody's eyes, a man-made famine and a genocide that's taking place in Palestine? What are we doing about it? What are we saying? Because they don't matter because they're Muslims? Is that the message that we're giving out? And the point is, we need to realize that Donald Trump is here for 4 years. He might get re-elected if he manages to get everything through the constitutional amendments and changes in US law, etc., etc. But failing which, we don't know who's going to be the US president 4 years down the road. We don't know who's going to be in power in other parts of the world 4 years down the road. I'm not saying national interest in real politics is not what drives foreign policy. It drives foreign policy for everyone. But there is a reason we call a committee of nations, we call the rule of law, democratic principle, individual liberties. What are these principles? I mean, are we not interested in any of them? Our foreign policy is a disaster today. We don't have one friendship that we can bank on. Everything is a transactional relationship. We don't have equations in the neighborhood that we can fall back on. We don't have a solid foundation of a relationship with the United States. Everything with Europe is, I mean, when things were good with the US, Europe was on the back seat. I mean, okay, they're a biggest trading partner as the EU, but individual European nations, where are we on trade? Europe is also saying India has been very silent on Ukraine. That's an existential threat for them.
Actually, I remember.
So, I mean, there's so much of this that's going on, and the question really is that what Trump is doing, if you look at it in isolation, then it's what Trump is doing with India. But if you look at it as a foreign policy continuum, I mean, I would say that we brought this upon ourselves.
I'm a bit puzzled, Jahnavi. India accounts for just 3% of the trade deficit of America. Right. Trade deficit is $1,200 billion. India is a small,
a small player.
Yeah, small player. Why is Trump pushing India so much? In spite of the fact that we are such a small player, he should be. His main thing was China. Right. His main target was China. Everybody knew. He's done a deal with China. China's got a good deal. China done a deal on future technologies. China has managed for the first time to get US to open up export control on chip design. Software they are now agreed to supply to China. China in return has agreed to give rare earth magnets for their EVs and missile systems. Missiles for mass production need rare earth magnets. It is India which is not getting rare earth magnets today, which Tata and Bajaj Motors are saying we don't have any in our stocks. Now that we should have been engaging with China. Instead, after Operation Sindoor, what did we see? Mr. Modi in a public meeting calling China all kinds of choti aankh, all kinds of very, very unedifying. That we should stop doing trade with China. And what Commerce Minister makes a statement a month ago that ASEAN is a B team of China. I mean, what kind of statements are these? I mean, as Maya said, if you are hedging properly, if we couldn't even do that. Hedging we couldn't do because our officials are making public statements. Yeah. Almost calling ASEAN a B team of China.
Hedging requires keeping everybody human.
So you can't make extreme statements in public. Jaishankar made a statement a year ago that the world has a China problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, the world today has a US problem. China is negotiating with everybody. It has just opened up for Africa, zero duty. Chinese have opened up, exports from Africa at zero duty. 53 countries. China is engaging with Japan, China is engaging with South Korea, China is engaging with ASEAN, of course. Who are we engaging with? We've got one FTA with UK, and we are struggling with our FTA in EU. We are trying to do with EU. But EU will also demand a lot of things that US Trump is demanding, right? In regard to many aspects of trade and investments, very important. So what are we doing? I don't know what is our foreign policy, and sometimes I feel that this government has been got so carried away with building its image of the Vishwaguru that they've completely lost sight of details of policy, painstaking details that you have to sit down and work with various countries. It's a big problem that we are in.
And especially because Trump's tariff announcement should not have come as a surprise, even because multiple times he's made these threats after the BRICS meeting.
He's been saying that I'll go back to the original tariff. But what came as a surprise was his statement on Russia.
On the
Penalties.
Yeah, penalties.
No, on Indian relationship, arms and oil, both of which are very, very essential and sensitive for India.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is where he's going to hit, right? I mean, there is no other way for him to
That
hit.
is a real hit. And the other one Trump, I must add, he's talked about obnoxious. He used the word obnoxious for non-tariff barriers. India's non-tariff barriers, it is true that India's non-tariff barriers are really harsh. And much of those non-tariff barriers are largely aimed at protecting the big industry here.
Yeah.
So, and this is not new. Lighthizer, the earlier Trump regime, the Commerce Secretary he was, right? In a book he has written that in India, if you want to figure out what Indian policy is, just talk to the top 5 big capitalists there. They determine Indian policy. So this is their view, and all these non-tariff barriers are largely aimed on the manufacturing side, aimed at protecting big Indian businesses. All the small fellows want lower tariff, but then small fellows are disorganized. They don't get to have a say in policy, right? MSMEs, whenever MSMEs got a say, and the other is agriculture. Of course, India can't.
That is a non-negotiable.
That's a
for
non-negotiable.
India.
India can't, compromise on agriculture. That's a big sticking point with the US, and on that Indian position is fine. It's valid. Now, but the other countries have given concessions on agriculture. For instance, EU and Japan. Japan has given concession. Japan can give concession because less than 5% of their population are engaged in agriculture. So they will look after them through subsidies. They've allowed rice. Japanese are very, very this thing about rice. They don't allow any other rice to come into there. It's almost a cultural thing for them. The sticky the rice market, they don't. Let's see what happens in the negotiation. At least the government should tell us.
Yeah.
I feel now at least the government,
They
should tell the opposition, should ask the government, please tell us what happened when you visited Modi in February and offered all those unilateral concessions. What happened after that? Please give us an account of what happened that things should come to such a pass.
I think definitely this is going to be something to watch in the days to come,
Yeah.
how this plays out. But that brings us to the close of our discussion for today. Thank you both
Thank
so
you,
much for
Jahnavi.
joining me, and thank you all for watching.